Good morning, dear Mira. I'm so excited today, more than usual. I'm very excited to always be here to interview, but with you, it's a different place in my heart. I'm honored to be interviewing you today.
Thank you, thank you. It's so fun. Usually it's you and I speaking with people and asking the questions, and this time I get to be in the hot seat. So yay, thank
Yeah.
you.
So let me begin by saying that um, I'm just humbled and honored to be your friend and your co-interviewer. And anything we do together makes me very excited. But there's so much to you that I think people would love to know more about. So let's start by saying that I got to know you from Hay House because Wayne Dyer, the Honorable Wayne Dyer, introduced you to the world. And of course, I would follow everything he said because I loved him dearly. And the minute he talked about you, I just knew, without knowing you, I just knew that I know you from different experiences. And I sent all of my clients, I said, you have to go to Mira. And I'm just going to say to the audience that the way we met is because you picked up the phone and you said, I want to thank you for sending me these
Yeah,
clients.
that's exactly what happened. Yes.
Yeah. So I want to know more about your experience with Wayne Dyer. And I know that your background is actually you've been educated, you were a lawyer before in New York City. So bring us into this story, how you got to be with Wayne Dyer, to meet him and all of that.
Oh my God, it's such a sweet story. And I would love to share it with you. And honestly, in my mind, I'm thinking, where do I start? Because every piece of the story is just so fun. And so maybe a good place to start will be to share with people how, for me, Wayne Dyer was never somebody who I idolized, right? Somebody whose books I read. I saw him on a PBS special and I read one of his books. However, it wasn't that deep, profound moment of my teacher, my guru. And I think this was really very useful. So that's why I'm saying it right from the start. And the very first time I went to see Wayne Dyer speak, I was already working as an attorney. I was living in New York City at that time. And he was on stage when for the first time he announced that he has leukemia. And I felt for him, but it didn't register in any special way. And so I also want to say that a couple of years before this moment, I actually had a dream in which Wayne Dyer was teaching me how to be a spiritual teacher. But it wasn't, this is how we forgive. It was a dream where he was like, these are the ropes of the business. I got to teach you the business here. And I woke up from this dream and I was like, oh, what a strange dream, right? Like, how interesting. But again, I just let it go. And 2 years later, I'm sitting in the audience. He announces that he has leukemia. And I think to myself, well, just like anybody would react. And then about a month later, I was talking to a friend, and the friend on the phone was telling me how at that time Wayne Dyer was doing a trip through all these sacred sites in Europe. And so the name of the trip was Experiencing the Miraculous. And so as this friend is telling me this on the phone, I have this moment of a hunch, and it's a feeling that Wayne Dyer is ready to heal from the leukemia, right? It's just a knowingness, right? And you understand this moment of knowingness. And
Yeah.
so I thought to myself, wow. And I shared it with the friend, and the friend said, you have to reach out to him. And I was like, what do you mean? All right, like, what do you
That's
mean?
scary.
And the friend was like, well, you have this hunch, maybe you can help. And I was like, yeah, but I'm an attorney. I don't even dare say to people that I'm interested in past life regression and that I really love the process. And so we hung up, and for the next few weeks, I was living through a personal nightmare. So one voice on the shoulder was saying, Mira, if you can be of help, reach out. And the other voice was like, nah, you've got nothing special going on. He's got better people around him. You have nothing to contribute. And so finally, I decided to sit down and write a letter, and I wrote it down. And then I was like, well, but where do I send it? Right? Like literally, where do I send it? And so this is where my legal skills kicked in, and I figured out how to send the letter and found his address. And so I sent the letter, and I experienced, Sharon, such relief. I was like, out of my hands, out of my life. I'm done with this, right? Now I can go back to my normal life. And a month later, he called. I received a phone call from an unknown number, and of course, I didn't pick it up. You know, the thing we all do. And Wayne left a voice message, and I was like, wow, now I have to call back. So I go back. You're ready for this? This is the funniest thing. I call back, and I say hello. And he says to me, how old are you? Because, you know, my voice doesn't sound like a very deep, mature voice. And I say to him, I'm a lawyer. And I was like, oh no, I literally just told him that I'm 13, right? I felt that way. So I just felt myself go red and get embarrassed and be like, oh shit, I messed this one up, right? And so we kept speaking, and the story of Anita Morjani, how she miraculously healed from cancer, had crossed my world, had come into my world. And I really loved how Anita's story was such a beautiful example of how one moment of perceiving things differently allows us to expand. And her story goes very much into that place of two parallel realities, and we do get to choose. And her choosing to live during her near-death experience resulted in her medical records being completely changed from, two different versions of medical records in the two different realities. And so her choosing to live, coming back into the body, she really got the diagnosis that she saw, right? A different medical record. And so I was trying to say to Wayne, I believe past life regression can allow you to transcend time and space through this just jumping through timelines, basically, right? And so I sent him Anita's story because I felt that him reading somebody else's account can help him say, oh wow, that's possible for me and my leukemia too. And so, of course, as the story goes, Wayne loved her story, sent her story to Hay House. They tracked her down, figured out who she is. They offered her a book deal, and that's how Anita came into my world. And I was able to help her. And I'm so very grateful because in terms, we were able to tell Wayne, the two of us together, right, through this experience, what is possible for him. So I flew out to Maui, and I did a past life regression with him. And there was a deep sense of connection and familiarity, right? That immediate sense of bond and understanding of the mind. So when I met Wayne, that's why I was saying at first, I didn't meet him as my guru where I'm bowing at his feet. I met him as we're equal. We're doing this together. We have so much to give and share with one another. And I became a very significant part of him healing from the leukemia, right? Having me, that experience with him, the experience with the entities and the John of God experience back then, and also Anita's loving presence. And so these three things really turned out to be that trifecta, that effect on him being able to transcend. And what I loved is whenever I would interact with Wayne and engage with him, he always said, I am healed, I am healthy. He really stopped going to the doctor. He wasn't going to play into the game of what do I need to heal the leukemia. He just simply said, what do you not understand? I am healed, right? So he did his piece too. We each gave to him, I gave to him, the divine gave to him, but he also gave to himself as well, right? He really embodied that energy. And when his autopsy was done, when he transitioned, his family very clearly said there was no trace of leukemia in the body. And to me, it came as no surprise, because to me, it was always a given, right? It was always, I knew how I helped him. He put the story of our regression, well, part of it, in his book, Wishes Fulfilled. And that way, Wayne became very instrumental in me being able to be with you here today, and having helped so many people. And so it's really interesting to me how regression has been very deeply connected with physical healing for me, if that makes sense, because that was my own personal story. I was able to heal a physical condition by having a past life experience. That's what I offered to Wayne. And I also very much as I love the incredible, profound cosmic experiences and mysteries that my clients uncover, I also love it when they tell me my thyroid is healed, or I'm cleared from this and this illness, right? So I love the present, immediate healing that people are able to access. So that's the story, even though of course there's so much more to it. But thank you for
Wow.
allowing me to share.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing. And I do want to hear more about it, but maybe if you don't mind sharing, maybe how you came into this, into the healing, because I agree with you. I feel like it's such an important part of past life regression is to actually heal the body. There's, in my eyes, there's nothing more important than healing ourselves that way. Of course, fears, etc., are important too. It goes hand in hand, but this is really a big gift when people can heal themselves through regressions. So
Most
yeah, please
definitely.
share with us some, either yours and or
Yes,
share
most
more
definitely.
stories.
Maybe I can start with my story and then I'll share others. So I discovered past life regression when I was younger, but then I put it to the side, life kept going. I was in my teens. And I was in my mid-late 20s when I was living in New York City, like I mentioned, and I was working as an attorney, and I developed the TMJ condition. And so what happened is I had some dental work done, simply fillings being replaced. It wasn't even that extreme of a dental work. And that imbalanced the jaw, if that makes sense to you, right? So the muscles got inflamed and I developed in extreme pain. And so the diagnosis was a TMJ condition. And so the pain was so extreme that I couldn't even open my mouth to put a spoonful or a forkful of food. It was always there, right? Like right here in the face. And it was really debilitating and impacting the quality of my life. And so I was able to work with one of the best professors, that I could find in New York City, who was also having a private practice as a dentist. I was going to physical therapy. I was doing everything. I changed my mattress. I changed my pillow. I constantly kept taking pills, and nothing was improving, and all of it was costing me very dearly. And so it was that extreme. And so I was told that you just have to learn to live with it. And imagine in your 20s being told you got to live with chronic pain for the rest of your life. I mean, I get a cut on my finger and that bothers me much less, something so extreme. And
Yeah.
so I that brought me to say to myself, but wait, what about past life regression? Do you remember regression? And so I found somebody very quickly. I went to my first session with this person and I didn't experience anything. And I want to say this so that people don't feel discouraged when regression immediately doesn't work for them, right? I don't want to paint it as something that is a miracle pill. What I realized and later realized for other clients is I just so needed for this to work that I was getting in my own way, right? Basically. And so, but I didn't give up. I didn't know what else to do. So I went back for another session, right? And this time around, I had a very quick and short experience. I saw myself as a very physically strong man. I was tall, I was muscular from physical labor, and I was a slave, and I had these metal cufflinks that were chains around my wrists and around my legs, and there was one color that was right around my neck, and it was connecting, the chain towards the wrists and the rest of the body. And there was an imperfection in the metal when it was welded together, right? It wasn't done really well. And so that metal imperfection was just always hitting right here and hurting. And that was the same spot where Mira in this life at that time had that pain. And the emotion was so intense. I had a vague awareness of the masters, right? The people who owned me as the slave. And I had such a sadness and powerlessness, such a feeling of being trapped, and such a feeling of, well, this is what it is, right? The hopelessness. And and I left that office with, crying and being all emotional. And the next morning the pain was gone. That's the most incredible part of this story. And now, of course, it makes sense to me why it's gone, right? Because back then, as an attorney, I very much felt trapped in my job. I felt very much the very same emotions that he felt as that man. And I didn't necessarily have the moment of saying to myself, because nobody sat me down to help me process this, right? I just had an emotional experience, and then I was told, go home or go for a walk. And so I now that I look back, I realize that just having this experience immediately allowed the mind to say, oh, but I'm not trapped. I can do things. I can change jobs, for crying out loud, right? I have options. Why am I allowing myself to feel this way? But none of it was conscious, right? None of it was going through my mind consciously. And the pain was gone. And quite a few years later, I moved, I traveled, I started doing this work. I went back to the same dentist, and he said to me, because he was looking at my records, he said to me, how's your TMJ? And I was like, TMJ? What TMJ? Oh, right. So it really left my life. And funny story, he became a TMJ, even more focused on TMJ conditions because of me. He was like, you are the most extreme patient I've had. And so he started sending me clients because the opportunity for emotional healing was there. And so that was my moment of being, oh, regression is an amazing tool, because it really goes right to what the person needs. It goes right to what they need to unlock, to understand, to see. And so I whenever people come to me, they come with all kinds of problems, right? They come with all kinds of conditions and questions and issues. And it's always that big trust on my side. Well, I personally don't know what it would turn out to be, right? What you experience, but I know it will be exactly what you need. I know it will give us exactly what you need. Yeah. So that's how it all started.
That's amazing. And I could speak from my point of view that first, the body, as you know, tells us, brings our attention to things that about our life that we need to change. every organ has its own message about our life. And I find that, and I'm going to state this again, that I don't do past life regressions, but I could see the other lives. And sometimes when I say to people, this happened in this life and this, and they say to me, are you talking about this life or the other life? Because it's the same pattern, but we bring it here to heal it. Yeah. We want to bring it up again, and we set it up this way. That the soul sets it up, as I'm sure you know, Mira, but I'm just sharing it with people that might not know. We set it up when we come into this life, and we make agreements to prompt us to have these experiences so that we can heal it.
I really love what you said, because that's actually how I see karma, right? I see karma not as something that, we've done poorly in a past life, so now we have to pay for it. I see karma as a gap in understanding that our soul is looking to bring in through the current experience, right? So yes, the pattern of thinking is the same, right? The way you spoke, the pattern is the same, but it's not coming up because the divine wants to punish us and we've been bad. None of it, right? This is not about judgment. This is about our soul saying, I missed a piece. Let me go and see if I can see it differently, right? And for me, through that experience, it was about empowerment and power. And so actually now, as I work through people, and as I've been working through so many years of coaching and past life regression with people, everything I really teach is personal power, right? Isn't it funny? Because I had to turn that around from my own awareness. And now I have the medicine to give to people, right? A different understanding. How can they bring that personal power to their lives rather than being washed, by waves around through circumstances? How can we bring a greater sense of leadership and personal power and change our lives? So yeah, it's really fascinating when we think about that bigger soul journey picture. Yeah,
absolutely. And I totally agree with you. It is all about us coming to really know who we are as the God that we are, and it's such a long journey. There's so many layers, everybody always speaks about the onions, the layers of the onions. It's an endless journey, because as long as we're physical, there are problems that are going to come up, and we forget to be in our power. Isn't that true? We forget how powerful we are. And we just, I don't know if it's the way we're brought up, conditioned to think, but it's so easy for us to give our power to the doctor, to the lawyer, to anybody, our husbands, our wives, and we forget that if we could take the power back, everything will be solved much easier, right?
This is reminding me of this one time when you and I were together having coffee, and I was sharing with you whatever problem was happening in my life, and you were listening to me, and then you got impatient with me, which was totally right to get impatient with me, because you said to me, but what do you want? And I was like, what do I want? Right? So absolutely, right? So I'm so grateful for our friendship, and I'm so grateful we have been, you and I, able to create this container for people to come and learn from so many people, and to have these experiences. Because I feel like every time we dive deep into this kind of information, we receive guidance. We're able to hear what's right for us, right? And so you have the extraordinary benefit of being able to hear it easier than other people. I really admire your work, and what an exceptional guide you are in terms of animal communication, healing the body, right? Like, what does the body need to be healed? Seeing past lives, everything. Literally, you're everything. So yeah, and this is making me wonder. Obviously, I don't have your gift, but this is making me wonder. How can you share with all of us to be able to hear our higher selves better, that inner guidance better? Anything you can teach us and give us as advice?
I feel like we're masters of distracting ourselves from what is really what we how we can connect and really listen to our intuitive voice, to our higher self, do that bridge. I see the higher self as a bridge between us, the personality, and our soul, which, we, the personality, is such a small percentage of our entire soul, our light, our being. So I feel like if we can move a lot of the distractions, we can hone in on listening and opening up to really get, because we're all connected. There's no one on this earth that is not connected to God, Goddess, all that is. We're part of it. It lives in us and we're it. But so the only way to really close our ears to everything else and just hear what we get from our higher self is to just move the distractions. And people do it through meditation, through guided meditation, through so many ways to do it. But we need to be focused on what our intention is so that we can tell the energy, this is the arrow, this is where I'm going. I don't care that I need to do this or that. I want to be in touch with my soul, And I'm going to offer a free meditation to meet the higher self and to have a relationship. And just so you know, I do not do anything without my higher self being, if I can, in my body, but if not, I always call it and I always ask it. It's the higher self's job to really direct our life. We, as the personality, we can say what we want, but the how is the job of the higher self. So if we can figure that out, if we can remember that, that makes our life here so much easier. Just give it to the higher self. Just say, I would really like to have this in my life or to do this. Could you please help me? And you will see that the way is going to be shown to you. It's that easy. I'm saying it easy, but it is that easy. But thank you for asking me, because I do feel that it's important for all of us. It's a gift that if we can be in that mode of communication. Yes, thank you.
And the way you speak about it makes it sound that it's here, it's available, it's present, that support, that guidance, that benevolent love.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I never, ever, ever felt alone. Never. Because I always felt, for me, it's not it's not a normal thing, but I came in knowing my connection, and I always had that consult and that, but for everybody, you're not different than I am. I mean, we're all the same. So the only difference is that I came in knowing what I came here for and being open to it. But you all are connected, so you could just put it as an intention. I want to be more in touch with my higher self. It's that easy. I don't want to do anything without my higher self being advising me and consulting with me, and that will make life so much easier.
I'm gonna take this on as a personal guidance. Thank you. I'm gonna focus on doing that. Thank you. And I'm excited for the meditation. I'm gonna use your meditation so that I can tune into that. Thank you. Because that is a part of the regression experience. But I don't want it to be just when people do a past life regression and then for that one time they connect with their higher self and that inner guidance. I want it to be a daily experience for all of us.
Yeah. And Mira, maybe do you want to share more examples? Because I feel like we all love to hear stories, and we learn through these stories.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I know you have so many of them. So please.
I really do. Thank you. I'm thinking of a client. So this is what happened. There was a time when I was seeing at first people only in person, right? So people literally were flying in from India and Australia and all over Europe. And so this family, this couple, husband and wife, and their younger child flew in from Los Angeles. And the first day I saw the husband, and he came, and he shared how he was on the Olympics team while he was in college, and he was training for the Olympics. And all of a sudden, he developed all these problems physically to a point where he had to drop off the team, drop off from school, right? So he had to completely focus on healing the body. And eventually, through some trial and error, he was able to reach a very limited amount of food that he can eat, right? So limited. And still, his health was not improved in any way. He was just kind of like coasting by, having figured out how to stabilize things. And he experienced a lifetime where he actually dropped right in the moment of him dying, right? So imagine the scene. So he was in the middle of an arena, and the roaring crowd, the loud noise, and all the dust around him. And he was a bullfighter. And so he was dressed in all that fancy attire, right? The showman attire. And he was fighting this bull, and this bull charged at him, and just for a split second he didn't move out of the way fast enough, right? It was just that moment. And so what happened with him is, in that moment, he had his stomach cut out, the guts spilled in the dust, his knees went down, he whole body in slow, so he's describing this in slow motion to me, right? In slow motion, fell to the ground, and he died right then and there. And so when we were processing through the experience with his higher self, the higher self said he just had so much fear of failure that the moment he was training for the Olympics, it was such a fear of dying and fear of failure, that he just had to take himself out of the game. And that's how he developed all these physical conditions, simply because of the cross connection with this lifetime, but also the emotions that have not been yet figured out, the fear of death, the fear of failure, right? And so it was just the cheering crowd, being in the middle, performing, all of that. And so he, again, same sense of a profound relief, immediate sense of, oh, now I get it. I see things differently. I don't need to hold on to this physical condition anymore. So he literally did that quantum leap moment of dropping that story, that experience. And he left my place saying, I'm gonna go get a burger. And I laughed and I was like, okay. And so the next day comes in the wife for her session, and she sits down and she says, what did you do to my husband? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, what did I do to him, right? And she says, last night, for the first time as a couple, as a family, we were able to eat pasta together. She was like, in all our relationship, that has never happened. And she was like, and he's feeling great. He's not having the immediate symptoms that he had. And to me, that was an example of, the body is available, the body is willing to heal. The moment we receive that guidance, the moment we see things differently, everything is available for us to change. Much like the way I went into this whole business of being a past life regression is by being guided by Anita Moorjani's story, right? Because to me, she was such an example of the two variations, the two versions are available. Which one do you want to be on, right? Which reality do you want to align with? And so that story is an example of how powerful regression can be in healing the body. And I love, love, love that.
Yeah, and this is a great reminder. And again, it takes a while to really, really get it, but the body looks physical.
Yes.
But it is all part of our consciousness, right? So when in our consciousness, when we heal something, the body just follows through. And I do feel that, well, I'm sure you know this for sure, but the ego, the mind, the job is to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So it makes up these stories for us in order to get us to be stuck in a place where it's familiar with it, even though it might not serve us in a big picture at this point, like this guy, that couldn't eat anything. It didn't serve him in his life to be an athlete, but it did serve him because he was so afraid, deathly afraid. And that's what you probably find out, and I find out, that things that made us die before are giving us stories in this life that makes us deathly afraid of the most benign things, but we are deathly afraid because we've experienced it differently in a different experience, different life.
You saying this is making me think of another story. May I share another
Yes,
story
please,
with you?
please.
So I was doing a workshop here in LA, and actually that's when I met Jerome. He came in with Kathy, and him and Kathy have been working together. He's been guiding her through past life regression. And so after the workshop, Kathy said, "Hey, can you work with my son, with my daughter, with my husband, with me? Can you come and work with the whole family?" And so I drove out to meet with them. I knew a little bit already of the story. And the story was that Christian, the son, at that time he was, I believe, either 5 or 6 or somewhere in between that age, and he was having spontaneous memories of being Lou Gehrig, and he will just spontaneously talk about Babe Ruth. He will talk about about his life, and she was smart enough when those would come up to write down his little comments, right? And
Yeah.
so she later reached out to Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia. And before she reached to Jim Tucker, she reached out to her pastor. And he said to her, "He's possessed. We need to we need to do something because this child is possessed by the devil." And of course, like every loving mother, she was like, "My son is not possessed," right? And so
Right.
she started researching, and she was saying, "Well, what else is possible to be happening here?" And that's how she found out that the University of Virginia is actually has a whole department studying cases of children who spontaneously remember past lives. And so she reached out to them. Jim Tucker went to see Christian and talked to them. And as he was about to leave, he said to her, "When parents have children who remember spontaneously past lives like these, usually the parent is connected to the child's past life somehow." So he said to her, "Go and do a past life regression." And that's how Kathy went to see Jerome. And so I went and I worked with Kathy, and she was able to uncover such incredible details, right? Details that are not publicly known and available about Lou Gehrig and about his mother. And so it was very clear to me that Lou Gehrig and his mom were very deeply connected, very deeply, right? Everything that she was sharing in her past life regression about him, about her life. And she was a force to be reckoned with, right? Mama Gehrig, a force to be reckoned with. And so Lou Gehrig died of a condition where his muscles were unable to support the breathing anymore, right? And that's how we started calling that Lou Gehrig's disease. And so as we were doing this regression, I asked Kathy, "But why you, right? What is your own piece in this whole thing? Why is this thing coming through your child? Why are you involved in this?" And she experienced a lifetime where Kathy was the daughter of a priest, and he had secretly taught her how to read, because back then it was not a thing that we would teach girls how to read, but he taught her how to read. And lo and behold, in his books, she discovered books that were speaking about reincarnation, old Christian texts that were clearly not being taught at that point in time. And she was so excited, and she would tell her friends, and she would tell the neighbors. And so, of course, that got her into a lot of trouble. And so, of course, then she was put on trial, and her dad was made to renounce her as his daughter and to say, none of this is real, none of this is true. And so she died. She was killed for sharing that piece of information. And so her soul then went to have the Lou Gehrig life mother experience, so that the next life as Christian's mother, she can come through and say, now I can talk about this. Reincarnation is real. Let me tell you, my son is having these spontaneous experiences. I'm connecting to my own personal past lives. And so then the next thing so that was amazing, right? I was like, oh my God, don't you love
Yeah,
the soul's journeys we go on, right? And so the
yeah.
next thing I had to, we were planning for me to do was to work with her son. And so Christian laid right next to his mom, because, he was a young kid on the bed, and I started relaxing him. And he wasn't interested in experiencing a past life, right? He wasn't interested in going anywhere. So I wasn't going to push it. I was like, that's okay. But what I said to him as he was in this state of trance is I said to him, you don't have to experience those physical symptoms anymore. They belong to another lifetime. This is a different body. You're a different person. And the reason why I said that is because he had life-threatening asthma, where every week they will be in the emergency room saving his life, literally because he couldn't breathe, right? That was the condition Lou Gehrig had. He couldn't breathe. And so Christian had this very harsh experience of asthma. And so just that little bit, he heard me, and that was the end of his asthma attacks, right? He would never have that experience anymore. And his mom wrote about it in her book. She wrote a book, The Boy Who Knew Too Much, with that whole story. And so these experiences of past life regression are so rich. They heal our bodies, they heal our minds, they help us understand the bigger journey of our soul, to sit back and be like, wow, that's amazing, right? It helps us understand our relationships. Truly, truly a valuable tool, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember before my dad passed, I was very scientific at that point, and I thought, okay, energy doesn't die, right? It gets transformed. So I started getting into books, and that's when I discovered past lives, etc. And I figured this is like one of the best ways we have, I would say, if not the best, that and meditation, to really uncover ourselves deep on a deeper level. And I do feel that what's coming for us is us understanding or knowing all the experiences we had in different lives, and bringing it to zero and starting new. I do feel that as the civilization is going through this the precession of the equinox, where we're more aware, the age of Aquarius, I feel that all of these are helping us, all the past life regressions and experiences are helping us kind of catch up and come to understand who we really are. So I do feel like it's kind of a roundabout way, but I want to say that I feel that it's a totally invaluable tool for everyone. I do. And I thank you so much for being in my life and for just being my friend and doing all the work that you do, mostly, you know, with everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Mira.
Thank you, thank you. I so value everything you said. Thank you. I felt so loved with the introduction and what you've been saying all along. Thank you. I feel very blessed to have you as a friend, as a guide, as a mentor, as a healer. Because everybody, you know that Sharon is my go-to person for everything. So this leaves me with only one thing I would love to share with people. Please give regression a try, right? And if the first time doesn't work, remember my story, give it another try.
Absolutely, because I want to say to that, like I was saying about the ego, the ones that are very much in our heads, the strong ones, you know, not saying, you know, one less smarter. It doesn't have to do with being smart. It has to do with strong being in our heads. The ego doesn't allow us to look deeper, you know, we don't allow ourselves. We need to move out of our way, like you were saying. So absolutely, please try it more than once and you'll love it. You will love it.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Mira.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
love you so much. I honor you and I adore you.
Thank you. I love you. And I'm so grateful we were able to do this. This was so fun. Thank you.
Thank you.